Now, what we're going to talk about today is we're going to really examine this thing called self-objectification and why it's absolutely necessary to understand. And when I say understand self-objectification, I mean the way that Swami Dayananda means it, in the sense that you see the meaning of self-objectification as it exists in your life. Now, he's got a very interesting an epistemological principle, a knowing principle. You can only be aware of what you know. So that means that when you actually recognize what self-objectification is, you can become aware of it, you can see it. But if you don't know what self-objectification is, you can't see it. And we're going to show the relationship between self-objectification and this beautiful practice called the practice of objectivity, which is another way he framed karma yoga as the yoga of objectivity, as you guys probably know, right? But it's a very interesting subject because normally we're completely and utterly unaware of self-objectification. Okay, so that's why it's such an important thing. And that all forms of unhappiness and misery are actually a form of self-objectification. So let's just have a look at what we mean by this, because for us human beings, normally, as we will see, we are enclosed in self-objectification. And the practice of objectivity lifts us out of being enclosed in self-objectification, or another word he uses that is subjectivity. So let's just look at, to really see this, first of all, we're going to look at the snake and the rope again. You know, the story is that the room's slightly dark and there's a coiled rope in the corner, and we look over there and we go, oh my God, you know, because suddenly we think we're looking at a snake. Now, what's happened is that because I think there's a snake there, what's happened is I'm enclosed in a way of seeing that cuts me off from reality. Can you all see that? I'm enclosed in a way, but I don't know that I'm cut off from reality. As far as I am concerned, I'm looking at reality. I'm looking at a snake, and I have no idea that the fact is that it's just an idea in my head that has been projected as experience. So I'm having an experience that is not true. I'm having an experience that is false. But within the experience itself, within delusion itself, because I'm seeing something that's not there, so I'm deluded. So when I'm seeing something that's not there, I'm deluded, but and Swami Dayananda's definition of subjectivity is because I am seeing it, it is there. Right? So if I was being objective, he's got another definition of that. Because it's there, I'm seeing it. So when I'm, you know, if you were outside and you were facing a tree and you close your eyes and then you open your eyes and try not to see the tree, you can't help it. Because it's there, you are seeing it. So what happens is, so do you get this point, is that delusion is a form of subjectivity. In other words, it belongs to the knowing subject. It doesn't belong to the object. Okay? Now, when it comes to ourselves, how many people here have ever experienced themselves as a bit of a loser, or someone who's a bit bad, or a bit of a low life, or not a good person, or what? Who's ever had that experience? That's a very common experience. But now we're going to really just going to tease this experience out. When I'm feeling I'm a loser, notice my language. I am a loser. In other words, I have a self that's a loser. Now, that means that I am taking myself, my life and being, to be this idea, just like the snake. I am a loser. It's the verb to be, isn't it? It's saying what I'm being, what I am. I am a loser. In other words, loser, the concept loser, and my life and being are now one and the same. Can you see that? Okay. Now, so here we are. We're enclosed in subjectivity. We're enclosed in self-objectification. I've made myself into an object that I can think about, but I don't know that. As far as I'm concerned, this is me. You with me? I've made myself into a thing, an object, and I'm not very impressed with what I'm looking at. In fact, I'm self-dissatisfied. I'm not happy with this self. Now, some Western forms of psychotherapy would say, Bede, what you've got to do is you've got to have a notion of yourself as a wonderful, loving, kind, compassionate human being. Oh my God, I'm getting excited even thinking about it. Now, this is also just as delusional. This is, again, you could say it's a happy delusion, but it's only happy because I'm now being an idea. So my experience of myself is more pleasant. Okay. Now how many people here have ever had self-ideas as to their goodness? That I'm smarter than other people, that I'm more right than other people, that, if only people would be different. Of course, I'm magnificent. Okay. And we have this complicated by the fact that because we feel so self-hating and guilty, we have literally a desire to find fault with the stupidities and wrongnesses of other people. Because when I'm looking at other people in a very derogatory way, I'm defending myself against my own self-hatred, aren't I? I'm not aware of that. I'm aware of the pleasure I get out of finding fault. I'm sure we've all recognized that. This is a universal problem that was first of all outlined by Freud. So it's called projection. But again, I'm caught up in this world of self-objectification. And so what happens is someone says, Bede, you're a nice guy. Oh, you really think so? Like when Sylvia said before, I'm shining. Okay. Now, I changed my shirt, by the way. Now, so the thing is that, do you see the common denominator, self-objectification? So I have a spectrum of feeling good about myself. You notice that? I can feel really elated. Am I good or am I good? It's what we call in the West now, feeling good about myself. Okay. Who's ever had that experience? I just want to feel good about myself. You ever heard people talk about that? So they want a self that they can feel good about. Think about that. I want to be a self I can feel good about. Do you see how there's a dualism there? I want a self that I can feel good about. And then I say, I feel good about myself. Right? So there's a dualism, isn't there? And it's to do with self-objectification. So when I'm feeling like, if you ever, who's ever said kind of, I'm feeling bored. I'm bored. So you got this bored, and it's bored. We're looking at the board. I think I'm thinking about myself. I'm not. I'm thinking about a notion I have about what myself is. So this notion is turned into an experience of myself, just like the snake in the rope. So when we look at human psychology, what we're looking at is this enclosure in self-objectification. And if let's face it, if you think that this isn't strong, think again. How many people here have ever felt put down by somebody? Is the experience pleasant? No. And we take that experience as real. Well, what the problem isn't actually that someone has put us down. The problem is I'm experiencing myself. I'm enclosed in self-objectification. You have said something, you know, you're a bit of a loser, and suddenly I feel like a loser. Or someone accuses me unjustly that, you know, you're a proper SOB. Oh, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. Right? But the fact of the matter is, unless I actually had the idea that deep down I actually am an SOB, nothing would happen. And this is how powerful it is. You know, and we don't lie about this. We need to understand that this self-objectification is a thing that is happening again and again and again. So we all have these experiences of me being pleased with myself and being unpleased with myself, don't we? This is the whole spectrum of our psychological life. And the thing is that one of the problems with this is that we think that feeling bad about myself is bad, but feeling good about myself is good. And what we want to do is we want to get rid of the feeling bad about myself, but we want to keep the feeling good about myself. Does that make sense? The problem is it doesn't work that way. What really holds us in self-objectification is the feeling good about myself. We think this is truly good. I want to feel good about myself. Okay? I want to feel good about myself. In fact, I think that's what happiness is, feeling good about myself. Okay? Now, so it's not a question of, so when I'm enclosed in self-objectification, my feeling of my life and being is constantly undergoing changes. I'm now a happy self. I'm now a sad self. I'm now a confused self. I'm now an upset self. I'm now failing to understand. Just a minute. I'm failing to understand self. So what's happening is I'm chopping and changing all the time. Would you say that's true? In self-objectification, could everyone mute themselves, by the way? Because there's a bit of background noise. So in self-objectification, I'm chopping and changing according to what's happening. Okay? There's no freedom in self-objectification. When you are being an idea or a notion, when you're having an idea of yourself that you're taking to be your very life and being itself, you are delusional. All right, you're delusional. Now, am I saying that most human beings, including myself, are normally enclosed in delusion? Is that what I'm saying? Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, you know, I can sometimes think of political figures in Australia and I go, what an SOB that, but right? Now, so, and when I'm caught in that way of seeing, I'm so sincere about it. I genuinely believe this. You know, so I'm hateful towards these politicians, and I believe sincerely in the sincerity of my dramatization. I'm experiencing myself as a righteous self. This is the wonderful thing. This is the wonderful thing that how we use people, because you see, if we put others down, if we see them in a bad light, we feel good about ourselves and the righteousness. But what we don't see is what Swami Dayananda is saying. We're caught in, we don't see the self-objectification. We don't. We're completely cut off from reality and we don't know it. Yeah, Robert? I can't hear you, Robert. Yep.
There is a place for taking political action and taking.
We're just not talking about that, Robert. I'm not talking about. Today I'm only talking about the reality of self-objectification, and subjectivity.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
So what happens is, here I am, I'm in a world, I'm in what Swami Dayananda calls my world. And when I'm in my world, I am not seeing, because it's there, I'm seeing it. What's happening is I'm projecting notions. Now, we could call these notions ontological assumptions. They're being assumptions, right? Who's ever felt that a person is a bad person? Who's ever had the notion you're a bad person? Who's ever had that experience? Anyone had that? That's obviously a generality. Now, Swami Dayananda said a very interesting thing. He said, when you see a criminal, when you term another human being a criminal, he says you're violating the person. What you're looking at is a person given to crime. And that's objective, isn't it? But when you've got a notion, when you've got the notion that that person is my idea of them, how objective is that? That the very being of that person is my idea of them. This happens all of the time. We're seeing this particularly now with because of the political contentiousness that's happening now. What we're looking at is that people are not looking. And can I say something quite clearly here? When you fall away from goodwill and concern towards other people, even your so-called enemies, you are being subjective. You are being subjective. Now, do I fall away from goodwill? Do you think am I a saint? No. Okay. I fall away stop nodding, Sylvia. I fall away. That's the problem with wives. They know you too well. You know, a wife is an assault on your vanity. You know that? Anyway, we won't go into that. Now, the fact of the matter is that, what was I saying? You remember, what was I saying? I've forgotten. Just lost my train of thought. So when you're looking through your own eyes, in the sense that what happens is someone says something, right, like say, what's your name? Out pops Bede. Well, what happens is the same thing happens. Someone says or does something you don't like and you go, hey, they're an idiot. Do you mean? Someone's in a political party you don't like, oh, how could they be so stupid, right? How many people have had thoughts and become a thinker who's imbued with ill will, but feels right about the ill will? Who's ever had that experience where you feel right about being hateful? This is one of the fundamental things about human beings. And the problem is that we say we love truth, but we need to see it's quite true. It's so easy, isn't it, to be full of ill will and feel right about it. And particularly in the judgment of our brothers and sisters, the thing that we like, the reason that we feel that self-hate, the hatred and stuff like that, is to defend us against a self-objectification that we don't like.
Yeah, but that's because we see the truth subjectively, not objectively.
Yeah, we don't see
our truth.
We only see our truth. When Swami Dayananda says that we're enclosed in our world, he's serious. He's serious. And when he talks about karma yoga, he's talking about living in the world as it is, as opposed to living in our world. So when we look at all of the different clinical categories we have in Western psychology, depression, anxiety, compulsions, all of these things, if we're talking about, and for Swami Dayananda, the whole point is freedom. What does it mean to be free? You see, what does it mean to be free? Not achieve freedom. Not how am I going to achieve freedom, because that's functional. That means I'm going to come up with some kind of idea or some technique or method, and I'm going to arrive at freedom. He doesn't do it that way. He always unfolded meanings that you could recognize. So his whole point is what does it mean to be free? This is why his teaching on self-objectification or subjectivity is so important. Because would you say that you are free when you are being subjective, when you're caught in a delusion unknowingly? It's pathetic. So now, and how do we kind of know? So when I'm experiencing myself, full of myself, when I'm full of myself, I'm feeling so good, I cannot believe myself. Okay, right? So when things go your way and you're feeling very good about yourself, is that freedom? Is it freedom that I'm having a wonderful notion of myself that impresses me, that gives me a sense of, it frees me from the feeling of anxiety and the feeling of inadequacy? Is that freedom? I'm still full of myself, aren't I? I'm full of a self I'm taking to be me. I'm taking my idea of me to be me, but I'm doing it in a positive sense. Is that true? And when I take myself to be a loser or a scumbag or whatever, it's the same thing. It's the same problem. But what most people in our Western philosophical, psychological traditions, we want people to feel positive about themselves. Have you heard of this? They want, instead of living positive, instead of engaging in constructive activity, constructive conduct, which is not an ideal, it's an actual objective responsiveness to what's there. We get caught up on, how am I doing? Am I doing okay? Are we all clear on this? This is so important to understand. And so what happens is I get lost in myself. I'm lost in myself. So when I'm getting angry, I'm not lost in anger, I'm lost in myself. When you're battling with these terrible people around you, you're battling with yourself. When you think of, oh, that person's just completely wonderful, well, that's also a form of psychosis. All our notions, all our notions we have about ourselves, about the other people and the world are delusional. Okay.
But the interesting part is that, the interesting part is that we see it so clearly on other people. Yes.
We're completely,
but we don't see it in ourselves.
No, we're in denial.
That's the blind spot.
Yeah, that's the blind spot. What Swami Dayananda calls a problem centered on ourselves. So what happens is that we're caught in ourselves. Like if I argue with Sylvia, right? What I'm doing is I'm trying to deal with her to deal with me. I want a form of self-objectification where I feel good and respected. Okay, now we all tracking here. So we have these notions about ourselves, about the world. Like, who's ever thought the world sucks? Now, if we were to stick to simply a description, we would say there's a lot going on in the world that's violent and unjust and unethical, that we're looking at descriptions in, aren't we? And you're going to always have in life some good things and some bad things in that sense. Does that make sense? Everybody you know is going to engage in actions that you like, and they're going to engage in actions that you don't like.
And you can say, sorry to interrupt you again, but you can say, and I don't like it.
Yeah, that's totally okay. That's just accurate. This person's acting in this way and I don't like it. That's being aware of what is, isn't it?
Or the world is the way this is the way the world is and I don't like it.
Yeah. But are you with me? That's objectivity. Okay. So what happens is, but what I want to make clear today is this. See, Dayananda says you're never going to want to cure a problem, a disease, if you don't want to cure a disease if you don't know you have it. You're not going to try and deal. It's not valuable to deal with the disease if you don't see it. And he says part of the teaching of Vedanta is to show you the disease. Okay. Now, is it pleasant looking at the disease? Of course it's not. Of course it's not pleasant. It hurts our vanity. Okay. But like someone said, there's a guy, Christian, an American. He said, Bede, have you ever heard of the saying that the truth will set you free, but firstly it's going to piss you off? I'd never heard that saying before. But so what we're looking at is that in subjectivity, we want to feel right. We just love that feeling of I am right. Who's ever dramatized rightness? Who's ever dramatized that feeling of righteousness, that delicious feeling of I'm so cool in comparison to other people, right? I'm delusional when I'm thinking like that. Okay, so that's the first thing. So just very quickly, I just want to just go through and just see what stands out to you in terms of the reality in your life of self-objectification. Me thinking of myself, because I made myself, to think of myself, I have to have an object I can think about. Obviously, when I'm thinking about something, I'm engaging in thinking about something, an idea. I'm not engaging in thinking about a reality. Okay, Marilyn.
Well, the example that comes to my mind is the man I live with. He's not my partner, but I caregive him, and we've been friends for a long time.
Yep.
His ex-wife, every time I'm in her presence, I feel horrible. I feel humiliated. I feel small. I feel scared. What other terrible emotions can I say? All of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I haven't seen her for a while. Now I don't even have to see her. All I have to hear is her name. She doesn't even have to be in my presence.
Mm-hmm.
And all these emotions come up.
Mm-hmm.
Now there has been a shift in that. So I think this is like and clearly if she's not even in my presence, like I started to get it, but it was so strong.
Yeah.
The hate
Mm-hmm.
Of how I felt was really directed to her.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, not in real life.
No.
Only inside of me.
Yes. But you do seeing that as objectivity, isn't it, Marilyn?
Well, it was so clear.
Yes.
Especially when she wasn't even in front of me.
Yes.
So it really, really drove the point home that this was projecting notions, as you say.
Yeah.
Because the pain was so bone crushing. The pain was so bone crushing to face. And so I initially went, okay, it's about you. It's all about you.
Yes. The machinery, that's right. We think the location of this world we're living in is something external to us, but in actual fact, it's centered on us. And the yes, and that's the thing. Very good, Michelle. Robert. Tell me, Robert, are you ever subjective?
Oh, sure, of course. Yeah. No, I mean, it's very clear that if, it's very easy to go into delusion if you identify with a thought that, that's a limitation of your basic awareness.
Yeah, we're gonna go into that, but so is it clear? Has it made it clear that do you see more clearly the reality of self-objectification?
Yeah.
That's what I'm going for. Yeah, good. Sylvia.
Well, I think I've said this before, but I'm not sure about it if I said it in this group. But
Mhm.
the good thing about getting older is that you see that all the illusions and daydreams that you had when you were a child of when this happens, I'm going to be happy, or when that happens, it's going to be okay, or as soon as I get this, everything is going to be okay. And then you see that it's just not true in the big things and in the small things. And that no matter what happens in my life, the feeling of unhappiness or I'm unsettled or whatever emotion you want to put it in whatever circumstance, because it could be the opposite circumstances as well.
Mhm.
The feeling does not go away.
We're still in the waking dream, whether we're having an experience of ourselves as positive or an experience of ourselves as negative. It's both just as delusional. Very good, Sylvia.
Yeah. It's like whatever event I'm facing, that feeling it's just constant.
Yes. And by the way, we don't want to deny the feeling. There's a difference
No.
between being lost in subjectivity and actually being aware of emotional reactions. That's a different thing. Very good. Kevin.
It's a very common experience.
I want you to raise your voice, please, Kevin.
Is that better?
Yep, much better.
It's just a very common experience of, I have an image, or I think I'm thinking about myself,
Mm-hmm.
and how to deal with various people or situations, and
Yep.
I'm just in my own world. I can see that, and that's a common experience. And
Good. Yeah, right. Very good. Michelle.
Well, it just became clear that if I have a positive thought of myself or others, or a negative thought of myself or others, it's actually the same thing in opposites.
Exactly.
And it's all, it's all subjectivity.
In the spiritual writings, how they always talk about going beyond the opposites.
Mhm.
We're going to go in that in a minute.
Okay.
Amy.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can. Clear, loud and clear.
Okay. I'm having a little trouble with this computer.
That's
Anyway,
fine.
when you were speaking about it, of course, most of the time we spend in this state, but I was thinking, when is this not the case? And of course, that is when your attention is completely off yourself and either on a task or on someone else, which is a great relief.
Yes, we're gonna go into that. Yep. So is it clear by what Swami Dayananda means by self-objectification, and can you see that clearly in your life?
I can see that, yeah. Me thinking I'm something else, an emotion or a thought, or
Yep.
yes, and I can't be, what do they say? You can't beat it if you can see it.
That's exactly right. Very good. Yeah. John, can you talk or you can't talk?
I can talk.
Okay.
So yeah, I think what's interesting is that it's very subtle. We talk about it, you say, Bede, for example, am I good, or what, I find that I'll be in a situation where it's a very subtle thing that I realize that, oh, I think I'm smarter than the people in this room.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a whisper. It's not like shouting. And I think that's that it's so ingrained, that subjectivity.
But the actual seeing what you took, when the moment you saw yourself like that quiet whispering, which in our Western tradition they call the small still voice, right? That's right. Very important, because it's just showing you, oh, there you are going, John, you're getting carried away with yourself again.
Exactly.
And at the moment you're seeing it, it's actually, you're not it.
Yeah, then it's like smoke. Yep.
It is, yes. Yeah. Patricia?
Well, you actually are smarter than most of the people in the room, John. At least in this room. Yeah, often this practice helps me notice your shining of this practice, helps me notice when I'm falling away, I'll call it like that. And I get caught up in it most every day, or I notice I get caught up in it most every day. And it helps me recognize that is some form of cray-cray.
Some form of what?
Craziness.
Oh, crazy.
Craziness.
Yep.
Some form of craziness that is pretty runs pretty deep, and that subjectivity is it's like a filter that does not want to doesn't want to go away.
Can I just say something? I know that's used a lot. It's a filter. It's actually not a filter. It's actually a world that cuts you off from reality. It's a projection. So, like, why I say that, I'm not saying that's wrong to use that, but just to emphasize the fact that when you're looking at a snake, it's not a filter. It's actually a delusional world projected from your own mind.
No, I mean like a camera filter, like a filter on a lens.
Oh, yeah. Very good. Now, so let's just see what the relationship between this and this beautiful practice of Swami Dayananda is called the Yoga of Objectivity. All right. Now, the only way, you see, what's wonderful is this. I used to think I had many kinds of problems, but what's presented here is you only have one problem. One problem centered on yourself. So if my one problem is I am being subjective, I'm actually being subjective. I'm being in a way of being, which is delusional, and I'm not seeing reality. Can you see the only remedy for this is living in reality? Can you see that? Living in reality, not thinking about reality, not trying to attain reality. But now we get to this beautiful thing of, well, what do we mean by reality? Like what do we mean by that? And as soon as you say that, people can think all sorts of weird and wonderful. Oh, it's such a Tananda, it's all this stuff, right? Now, we're not talking about that. For Swami Dayananda, reality is this. Because it's there, you see it. And get that? So in other words, when your mind is filled with what is here, because it's there, you're seeing it, you are being objective. And he talks about the practice of objectivity. Now, this has got nothing to do with trying to be positive or reach some positive thing or trying to be happy. See, Swami Dayananda thinks the whole effort of trying to be happy is based on the fact that you're experiencing yourself as unhappy. So if you try to be happy, you're not going to find happiness. Even your notion of happiness is delusional. So what he says is, you're awake to the moment by being yourself. Interesting idea. So when you're simply being with yourself as you are, and what I mean by yourself, when you're living in Ishvara's world. Now, Ishvara's world is the very presence of the given. Because the presence of the given is there, you see it. Now, if I'm with myself right now, and I just simply am being alive to myself in this room as I am. Now, am I responsible for what I'm actually like? No, because it's there, I'm seeing it. It's because of laws, I'm here. Now, you will notice that, when he says that beautiful meditation that the Lord Krishna taught Arjuna, Bring your mind to yourself and think of no other thing. So what we're going to do now is this. At any moment, you can't be a simple conscious person, or this, being your simple naked self. This is not something you can achieve. You can only be it, and you can only be it when you understand what it means. So when I am just simply being with myself as I am, it's a simple action. What I'm interested now in is being alive to facts. I'm not interested in being happy. Okay, I'm not interested in becoming better. What I'm doing is in the practice of karma yoga or objectivity, I am just being with myself and my experience as it is. And this is called, what's interesting is that in the presence of the given, I can rest in the presence, I can rest as myself in the presence of the given. So what if I'm like unhappy and angry? Good, I'm going to just simply rest as myself, unhappy and angry. Because what happens is, the whole point with subjectivity or self-objectification, there's two things. I'm looking at that. Is that true? But when I'm just simply being myself, there's no I'm looking at that. There's just being, which what Swami Dayananda calls, there's only the presence of Ishvara, which is another way of saying there's only the presence of being. So what's happened is I'm abiding in being. It's not important the form that I'm in, whether it's anger, whether it's upset, whether it's loneliness, it doesn't matter. The important point is the yoga of objectivity is I remain with what is without friction or resistance. Swami Dayananda calls this self-acceptance. Self-acceptance can't happen unless you are just accepting what's here. You can't be self-accepting. So here I am. I just come back quietly to myself, to the life and feeling that I'm here. I'm just here. And what I want you to do is, I want you just simply to relax as you are, just simply into the presence of reality that's here. That's all I want you to do. He calls this being relaxed in the lap of Ishvara. All right. What you're going to notice is when you do this, the self-objectification is going to go. It might feel bad. That's not the point. We're practicing karma yoga. We're practicing remaining the same. What does that mean? I remain the same by being myself. What he says, you're awake to the moment by being yourself. The word by means by the means of. So what we're going to do is just come back here now, just simply to what I'm like, to exactly what I'm like, because it's there, I'm seeing it. And I'm going to remain with myself, what I'm like, and all I'm going to do is just going to rest as myself, whatever that is, in the presence of the given, or the presence of reality, which in our teaching is called Ishvara, the presence of God in the form of what is. And we're going to do that for a couple of minutes. We're going to take refuge in reality. No denial, no resistance, just simply being our naked, simple, naked self. Which includes everything. And we simply let ourselves melt as we are into the presence of reality, which is abidingly present in the form of what's here. I'm not feeling good about myself. I'm not feeling bad about myself. I'm being myself. I haven't got a self I'm looking at. I'm being the presence I am. Which doesn't exclude anything. All that is here is Ishvara. All that is here is the presence of being or reality. When we come into contact with reality, we come into contact with the light of awareness. Can't help it. I'm filled with what is, because it's here, I'm seeing it. Advaita is a journey without distance. We don't try and get somewhere. We're living the understanding of what it means to be objective, which is to be ourselves as we are in the world as it is. And without any effort on our part, as we abide in reality, we feel a sense of composure. We remain the same in the presence and or absence of appearances as they're coming and going, so we're free. But most importantly, we find that when we're just simply being objective, we're at home with ourselves. What Dayananda calls resting in the lap of Ishvara. So when we spend time with ourselves as we are, we spend time with God as He is. An appointment with ourselves is an appointment with the Lord. Okay, Marilyn, what did you notice that you were just simply living the understanding of just simply living in Ishvara's world?
Yeah, yeah, there's a relief when you said that that there's nothing I can do about about what I'm like. That's not up to me. And that really clicked. It was like, there was a relaxation into that what I'm like is the given. I'm not doing it.
No.
I'm not in control of that.
No.
And I think, so that was the release, the relief, like you once said, what, not why.
Yes.
And that's a lovely feeling. There's a relaxation into the what, not why.
Yes.
Like you can look around more in wonder than I don't know what the opposite of wonder is, then fear, I guess.
Yeah.
That seems to be the opposite, that the objectification and the subjectification is fear, and the objectification is what? Like, what?
Yes.
So
You're
that's what I was-
lifted out of self-objectification when you're living in reality as it is.
And what is it?
We can only control our
Yeah.
actions. We can only control our actions, and you can only be reality. You can only be in reality. You can't think about it actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you can think about your actions and the consequences and all that, which is proper thinking. That's very good, Marion. That's lovely. Michelle.
Well, again, I was shocked at how easy it is to be there, how effortless it is. And then I was thinking, oh darn, my arguments against meditations are getting weaker and weaker. So yeah, I was laughing at myself, really.
Bear in mind what Swami Dayananda says, we need two things. And he said this in the Yoga of Objectivity, which is a great book, by the way. He says, we first of all need the wisdom. So once we see what being our simple naked self, because he introduced me to that rather harshly, but when you know what being a simple naked self is, when you know the wisdom, you know what, you know how. So you then live the understanding. So you're not actually doing anything towards an end. The being yourself is the end, and being alive to facts is the end. And that's why it's so, because there's no success or failure with it, we feel okay. You know?
Yeah.
But when we become spiritual climbers, we get into all sorts of trouble. Yeah, very good, Michelle. Robert, we're looking forward to something great from you, Robert. You just turned yourself off, Robert.
I have nothing great to share.
What did you notice?
I noticed how enjoyable it is to be tired and sleepy.
That's right. You weren't resisting it. So you were just being what you were like.
Yeah.
And this is what Swami Dayananda calls a contemplative disposition. In other words, we discover a disposition to simply be. And he considers this extremely important. This is the reason we do karma yoga, is to discover this and to be contemplative. Very good, Robert. Sylvia.
So when we started doing the exercise, I started feeling my body breathing.
Mm-hmm.
And I found it quite interesting because normally we go to our breathing in order to relax. But this was completely the opposite. It's because I was relaxed, I could feel the body breathing.
Very good. That's where Dayananda is different from all these other people. Yeah, very good, darling.
Yeah. That was the first thing. Yeah. And then the other thing was that, you know, I came in and out, you know, I started thinking, oh, what am I going to make for lunch? Or, you know, so then I saw that, and then I just came back and stuff, you know, I kept getting lost. So it's, you know, but life is like that, isn't it?
But
One
did you
moment
notice
I'm
that
here,
you didn't come back? What happens is the presence of reality intruded in on you again, scooped you up out of your self-objectification and brought you to itself.
Well, I saw it. So it's,
Yes,
yeah,
that's
if
exactly
I saw
right.
it's outside of myself. Yeah.
Yeah, very good.
Yes, it was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, Kevin.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
What I found is that I don't know how it happens, but you just find yourself just silent and resting or in repose, and through spiritual understanding, knowing that, just entrusting in that, not trying to understand anything or even
No.
focus or anything like that, which is
No.
thing of mind. Where you just find yourself sort of, like they express it as stayed on being, but you're not trying it. It's just you're finding yourself in resting in being, if it makes sense.
It's not I know that. It's being the knowing. In other words, we know what what reality is, and we know its importance to transforming ourselves, we then are being that knowing. That's what they mean by non-dual knowledge. It's a very simple thing, actually. A lot of people make it all funny, but that's all it is.
And I like that expression, being the knowing. I've always found it a very powerful way, because it's so in contrast to I know something.
Yes.
Away from myself. And
yes.
No, spiritual knowledge isn't like that. It's
no.
You have to be what you're saying. I found it very powerful when you said being the awareful presence that you are, and that doesn't exclude anything.
No.
Because it's
when you're being a simple awareness in the form of what's here, because the clay is the form of the cup, the clay is the pot, right? When you're just simply being what you are, you are in the form of just simply what's given. It's a very intimate connection. And then that's what Swami Dayananda means, being relaxed in the lap. He even said this relaxation that Sylvia mentioned, this relaxation is yoga, because our practice is to remain like this in the face of the chopping and changing experiences.
Yeah, so for me with this practice, and just more recently, it's been much more focus on just being silent, finding myself silent, being silent and resting, just repose, and not on, and definitely not away from interpreting, understanding, or what's happening, or
no.
What, am I doing it right? All that, just leave that alone.
That's why he says that karma yoga is an attitude. This attitude of relaxation, you do the dishes with, you talk to your wife with, you keep coming back and living from this attitude. Yeah, very good, Kevin. And what formally they call that graceful acceptance. Yeah, very good. Amy.
I became more still. Mm-hmm. For a while, I was thinking that I had to quiet the mind. All
that nonsense. Yep.
Yeah, but and then I saw I didn't need to quiet the mind. I just need to be present and still, and that began to deepen. Of course, it kind of came in and out, but I kept coming back, or it came back to me, as you said.
Yes. If you're with yourself as you are, your simple naked self, just as you are, whatever that is, that being yourself in the face of changing thoughts, the thoughts might be calm, the thoughts might be agitated. Who cares? Because you're remaining the same. And that's the whole point. And it's a very good point that you make, because the whole point is, and like what you said, we change when we're filled with the presence of reality. We change, but it's the presence of reality filling us up that changes us. Does that make sense? When the presence of reality becomes evident, which can only happen through knowledge, when it becomes evident, we change. It's a little bit like if I'm cut off from the light. If I'm cut off from the light, I'm cold and in darkness. But the light warms us. And what do we mean by the light? Some esoteric kind of spiritual wussy thing? No. The very presence of reality is the transformative factor, because the presence of God is not away from any of the given. And that's why we can simply rest in Ishvara's lap. The very presence of reality, we literally rest in it. But we're not going to be able to rest in it if we've got these crazy spiritual notions that one day I'm going to get this and it's going to be this, and there's some, it's just, that's madness. God's presence is abidingly present. Within the teaching of Vedanta, God is life itself, which is also light. Do you notice that as soon as you come into direct contact with any object, you become alive with the light of awareness? Do you notice that? Because Sat is Chit. And also there's an all-inclusiveness, which they call fullness. You're not feeling good about yourself. You're not feeling bad about yourself. The whole burden of self-objectification falls away when you're resting in reality. It's such a beautiful psychological point. It's just unbelievable. Very good, Amy. You want to say anything else before we go?
No, just I need to practice this more.
You need to live this, to be straight. You need to live what he says, you need to live the understanding of this. Okay. Yes. And so in living the understanding, you find freedom. In living the understanding, right? So then you won't be trying, you'll just be going, I just need to be alive to facts here. The spiritual understanding will come and you'll just go, okay, I'm just going to sit quietly with myself. I'm messed up. I don't know what I'm having. I'm upset. I'm just going to sit quietly with myself in reality. No denial. It's fantastic. This is magnificent. You don't have to try all this. This whole spiritual idealism goes out the window, which is very good. Okay, John.
So when we did this practice, there was a spoon on the table.
Yeah.
So I just kind of looked at the spoon, and
Yeah.
because it's like an anchor when I do this work. It's because you have to have something that you say, that is definitely that. And when I'm seeing it, right, I know it's a spoon.
Yes.
And I think what's always fascinating, there's two parts to it. One is how ordinary things become, just ordinary. There's no, and then that's where I won't call it relaxation, but that's where the stillness comes in. And I've always been surprised on how a simple thing that you're just looking at, one thing, and it can ground you in the present, I think is the amazing part of the work.
Diananda said an interesting thing. He says, you don't have to get into a boat to go into the ocean. Anywhere you touch the water is the ocean. So the ocean is fully present wherever you touch. So whether it's with your, it's very helpful to come back to the sense of aliveness and being that's actually given here as yourself. But it doesn't. But if you're just quietly listening to Sylvia likes to listen to the birds in the morning, right? So when you're just simply listening, you're just being filled with the presence of the given, which is the presence of the giver, which is the teaching. So you don't have to go anywhere, but all you have to do is open your eyes and come alive to facts. But again, you notice how without this teaching, how we wouldn't know what, you see, when you know what, you know how. When you know what it is to be your simple naked self, you will be being your simple naked self. It's not like I'll know it, then I'm going to get it. You see what I mean? So I encourage, go, what were we saying, John? Sorry.
It's not a destination.
It's not a destination, no. That's why we can say quite clearly the fundamental principle is God is. That's it. That's Saint Bernard. Do you know what I mean? So I suggest to you this week is that the practice of karma yoga is living objectively. In other words, practice.
Don't forget Patricia. Don't forget Patricia.
Oh, Patricia.
Thank you, Sylvia. Thank you, Bede. The practice this evening, I noticed a couple things. The first was that I actually missed practicing with you guys. The second was that I find in the practice that I come back to, it's not all about me.
No, it's about God. It's living in reality, yes. One thing that Diananda said, Patricia, is he says there's got to be less of you and more of Ishvara.
Yeah, and it becomes very, very intimate.
Very intimate. Saint Augustine said that God is closer to us than we are to ourselves. That's very good, Patricia. So when we look at this during the week, is that the practice of objectivity is really the practice of being yourself as a simple conscious person. So it's not towards an end. It's actually remaining yourself, remaining alive to facts. That beautiful phrase that he used, you're awake to the moment by being yourself. You're not doing this Buddhist mindfulness thing. You are living in understanding. That's how he puts it, because otherwise what happens is people still remain in the functional world trying to get somewhere. And you don't have to worry about the fact that, so here you are, you're noticing and you're actually knowingly living the vision. You're knowingly relaxed, you're knowingly alive to facts. Then you suddenly fall away into subjectivity again. That's fine. But what Dayananda said, when someone says, oh, I can't meditate, Swaminiji, because my mind goes away. He said, that's totally okay, because meditation is bringing it back. So what happens is, when you remember, you actually don't remember. What happens is the very presence of the given intrudes in on itself, takes you up, and you suddenly find yourself being yourself again. Does that make sense? So it's the action of Ishvara who's doing it, not you actually. Because even your love for the presence of reality comes from a different place than your love for looking good, being a hero, getting what you want, all of that stuff. That's from binding desires. But this Augustinian longing that Saint Augustine talked about, that has made us for yourself, O Lord, but we are restless until we rest in thee. That comes from God. That longing comes from reality. Only reality can satisfy that longing. And the more we satisfy the longing by living in reality, the more we will be drawn to it. Does that make sense? Like what Dayananda says, the more you value it, the more your mind will incline to it. It's like we develop a taste for it, if you like. Do you know what I mean? So it becomes more and more important. All right. Well, I must admit, it was lovely seeing you people again. I've missed all of you. And
it's great to hear you again, Bede. It's great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bede.
That's right.